Hey everybody, in this episode we're going to talk about confusion and corona. We're up to Romans 12, verse 2. Let's check it out. So it says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So this is an awesome verse for the time that we're living in right now. So it starts off by talking about not conforming to the pattern of the world that we live in. You know, if I think about the pattern of the world that I live in right now, the best word that I can come up with is frustrated. Okay, you know, especially, if you dive into social media too, you see, outrage or indignation. There's a lot of frustration that is floating around in our hearts and is being expressed to the people around us, whether it's on social media or in conversations at the water cooler at work or whatever it may be. And so that's a signpost, right? God says that we shouldn't conform to the pattern of the world around us. Okay, so if we all agree that that's the pattern, this frustration or outrage, then that's the number one thing that should not be in our minds, because we've decided to not conform to the pattern of this world. All right. So, but then God goes on. He says, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Okay. And in context, there's lots of different directions we can go, but in context, what Paul just talked about in verse 1, watch that last video if you haven't seen it. What Paul just talked about was this idea of sacrifice. If I get my heart and my mind off of myself and onto you, then all of a sudden I'm more worried about your pain, about your challenges, about your issues than I am about my own. And all of my frustration tends to melt away. And then finally it wraps up by saying that then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. We have so many decisions to make right now. Should I go to that barbecue? Where and when do I wear my mask? How do I connect with people when I'm just sick of Zoom? And, what the Bible promises here is that God's will becomes more clear when we transform our minds. Now, I'm not sure that God's will rises to the level of these kind of mundane day-to-day decisions, or maybe it does. I don't know. But I do think that once we strip away the world's kind of veneer over top of our lives, and we start seeing the world through a more spiritual lens, we see ourselves through a spiritual lens, and we see the world through a spiritual lens, then God's will really does become more clear. Hope that's been helpful to you, and look forward to seeing you again.